This program is made possible by friends and partners of the Special Parent Podcast.
I believe that empowering parents of special needs children is like giving them the superpower of unconditional love and unbreakable determination. They are not just parents, they are true champions, shaping a bright future for their incredible children. I'm Dr. Deanna Iverson, and I'm glad you're here. Welcome, everyone, to the Special Parent Podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us. Our mission here is to empower parents and inspire them. We want to help you navigate the daily challenges of being a special needs parent, but we want to help you do it with hope and clarity. The joys of being a special needs parent are so unique and so special. So we're building a community of parents that can get together and help each other with everything. Our topic today is improving self-care, strengthening our own mental health as parents so we can be stronger for our community and for our children. So I have a special guest here with me today. Hello, Monica, how are you?
Hi, doing well. Thank you for inviting and having us here.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. So you have started a company that is all about helping people build their own mental health and their own mental strength. So would you tell us a little bit, how did this get started for you?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, Avance Hub is for mental health advocacy. And really, we started it to help people be able to navigate their mental and emotional health every day a little easier. Mm-hmm. That even though therapy and coaching and other options that are great, every day we really need to be practicing things that even are just tiny but can help us lead better lives.
I love how you said that, practicing, because that's one of the things in one of my previous episodes when I talked about self-care. I talked about the importance of we have to practice it when we don't need it, so that way when we need it, it comes naturally to us. So as special needs parents, every single day sometimes presents a different challenge. So sometimes every single day we try to find a nugget of time to just take a break and to reset ourselves. So when you started your company and you were really looking at that idea of self-help, you called these workouts.
Yes.
Explain to me a little bit of what does it mean for it to be a workout?
Yes. One of our approaches here with a workout is that it is like circuit training. And so if we think about a physical circuit workout, you go through a series of exercises. And so we thought here, why not have a series of mental health strategies that we could go through in series, because oftentimes we do just need to continue practicing and strengthening that practice of what strategy is going to help us today, knowing that because of kind of what you just said, right? Every day is a little different, and the challenges are there, and sometimes they're constant, and our needs then are so different every day too, that a different strategy we might learn and see helps us more than the prior one that isn't going to work today.
Right. And then the idea also that you can circle back and go, I remember there was that strategy and I think I need that one today.
Absolutely.
That's really nice to be able to do that.
Yep. You can hone in and pull them out when you need. And just even having that flexible mindset, knowing that it's okay if one doesn't work, it may just be another one that's going to be more effective today, right now, for whatever reason.
Yeah, we don't have to get stuck on the idea that this is the one thing that works for me. It might be the one thing today, but flexible. That's a great one.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about mental health. What does that really mean to you as a therapist?
Yeah. I like to think of mental health as literally just our insides and everything that happens inside our inside world. It's probably the easiest way for me to say it, but of course our feelings, our thoughts, and our behaviors, how everything on the inside of us kind of comes out externally on the outside too, and impacts others or our environment and whatnot. And so I think though what we're focusing on at Avance and with mental health specifically is emotions, because one of the hardest things for a lot of us is what to do with them when they creep up. And we tend to maybe react and things can get a little harder sometimes just, if we're not able to kind of see, oh, look at all these emotions here that I can give space and take care of first.
Right. That's true. Because our behaviors, thoughts, and emotions, there's like a little cycle. They all impact
They all
each
hang
other.
out.
Yeah. So if we can really start talking about, like you said, our emotions can just happen to us. Sometimes we're not prepared for them. Sometimes we don't understand the trigger, and they can just happen to us. And so when that does happen, if we're reacting, and I know as a parent, a lot of times I'll get frustrated with a situation, and I love my kid to death, but special needs or not, parenting is tough.
Yes.
And sometimes I get frustrated, and I've reacted. I mean, I'm human.
100%.
I actually don't know a single parent who hasn't, but we don't want to make that our go-to. We want to be responders, not reactors. And so improving our mental health helps us be a responder rather than a reactor. So that's great. I love that. When you talk about your mental health exercises, do you think there's a group or an individual that you've designed them for that would benefit the most?
I think high stress, and we're really talking about when you're looking at your stress scale number, anywhere from 7 to 10, or especially over a 10. If you're over a 10, I would say, we've got to be implementing strategies, and we've got to be able to know that that's the number we're at, because that's just the first way that we can even tell that we've got to be putting some things into our day to take care of ourselves and start bringing that number down a little bit. We can feel better and we can manage better, and parenting can be a little bit lighter that day or that moment.
I love that. Like you said, it's about bringing the number down. And if we set realistic goals for ourselves, we recognize the number is probably never going to hit a 0.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's somewhat normal. But we want to bring it down to a manageable level where it doesn't feel like it's running or controlling our lives and our health and everything else like that.
I think it's such an important piece, actually, to keep in mind how much it ranges like that. That maybe one day you're a lot lower, the next day it may be a lot higher, and that even in the same day we can kind of go up and down with where that number's at too.
Yeah, that's true. Especially depending on the moment or something happens to us. Like you said, the emotions just, boom, they're there. And that can really take the stress up really high.
Or things just pile on, and suddenly the challenges and stressors for that day, absolutely, just all accumulated to now we're at an 8. We're not at a 4 anymore.
I've been there before. I remember telling my kids one day, Mom's checking out for a minute.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
I went to the other room. And about an hour later, my husband comes in and goes, tag.
Yeah. That's great. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was the idea that Mom got your checkout. Guess what's my turn?
Yeah.
So
somebody else is tapping in now.
Yeah, and it was funny because sometimes when I'm working with my kids, and this is what I think as a parent, if I can get better at my mental health, then I can model it for them. It's not just about being a better parent. It's also about helping them learn to be better stress managers themselves.
Absolutely.
And so when I tell my kids I need you to go take a timeout, I don't really mean that as a punishment. I mean that as in you need to go take care of your health, for your mental health for a minute, your stress, so that you can manage this better. So a lot of times as a parent, I find that if I just tell them to take a timeout, but I don't teach them what that means or how, then they don't know what to do with it either.
Right.
So I'm thinking some of the strategies that we're going to learn from, you can be something that we can teach our kids to use too.
Absolutely. One in particular, I think, is changing whatever the language is that we're using, because they may be thinking time out and everybody's not on the same page with, well, that's not what I meant exactly. Or let's take space. If we said, let's practice, and then we both go to the corner. Well, we're going to practice. You and I are going to go practice.
Yes.
That can start to change the dynamic too of how we're managing us and how they're managing them, and just that relationships that starts to form between the household and the two of you. With what are we doing? Are we taking time outs, or are we taking space? Are we practicing? Are we practicing calming, practicing breathing? What are we doing in that moment and that intentionality? So
I remember my son has a rare genetic syndrome, and it affects behavior a lot. And so at one point, we had some frustration going on, and we told him to go take a time out in his room. And I remember sitting there and listening to him, and while he was in his room, he was ramping up. And because he was talking himself into getting more angry. And so I had to go in there. I couldn't almost take my time out because I had to go in there and be like, okay, this is going the wrong direction.
Yeah. Timeout is not working right now.
Not working. So I love the idea of some strategies. And so I know when you said the word practice, I love that because if we wait till we're frustrated to do something, it's not going to work as well as if we practice a little beforehand. So your mental health exercises are to help us practice, right? And to help us teach our kids to practice before we're stressed.
Yep.
What are some practice strategies that you've started working on that you would teach people when they're heightened and stressed out?
Yeah. Some of the most basics are in grounding. But before we even ground, and it can sometimes even be overused, I think, when we say it. But when we truly do it and we notice the effect it has in our bodies in those moments, it's so powerful. But even before then, just to call out and name the situation that's happening, name the emotion, just to slow down. They may seem so basic, but most of us skip over those.
Yes.
And to actually name it a strategy and say, let's name this and name it out loud, name it with them. We're now acknowledging and setting again like a base. We're starting at the base here with this, just calling it out.
Just calling it. And I love that because a lot of times there's multiple emotions. And we get stuck with, I'll be honest, in our family, we get stuck with anger. And there's so many things that led to the anger. The anger is not even the problem. It becomes the problem if we're reacting.
That's right.
But it's not the actual problem. So solving the anger doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so I love that you said that. Naming what's really happening right now. And that's a good practice.
It is going back to the practice piece of it too. When we're doing that, we're getting back to the core of, hold on, before all the anger, what was I really trying to do here? Or what was I trying to accomplish? Where did this go wrong, right?
Yes.
I have a need, you had a need, and somewhere we did not match up.
Right.
So if we can go back to that of, well, I'm exhausted. That's why I can't go get the water bottle.
Yeah.
Or
I'm tired today.
just where is it at the core of what each party here is trying to gather and get?
Right. And I think it's so important because so many people, it's just a communication breakdown that then leads to, especially between parents and adults, because we don't see things, it could be generational, could be whatever it is, but we don't see things necessarily from the same perspective.
No.
And then we end up with that communication breakdown and the ball rolls downhill. And then we're in a fight.
Yes, all
Big
because
argument.
We just missed going back to, wait, what are your needs and what are my needs during this moment? We each have needs. And if we go back to those, we can probably meet your needs and my needs.
Yes. One of the things I noticed when I've been on your site and gone through some of the stuff, so you talk about self-compassion.
Yes.
And so you just talked about our needs. Self-compassion is something that I think is becoming something we hear about a little bit more, but it's so important. So will you explain what is self-compassion?
Absolutely. Self-compassion is simply having kindness for yourself, having compassion for yourself, being able to actually care about you and take a step back and give yourself that grace that you also need in your moments, in your life, in your day, that it's okay, that it's really okay. We don't have to feel guilty or beat ourselves up for things, even when we do mess up.
Yeah, that's a good one. And it's funny how we're sometimes willing to give that more to other people and we're harder on ourselves at times. And I think as parents, we do that. As parents, special needs parents, regular parents, any parent, we see our own flaws. And a lot of times we're really critical of ourselves about that. And if we practice self-compassion, what we're teaching our kids is it's okay to be human. You're a human. This is part of the humanness of us all. And if we can model that for them, and I would say maybe even after a conflict, coming back together and being able to say, this is what I did wrong, and I'm going to forgive myself for that. Something to that effect where you model for them the ability to say, it's okay to be human and love each other again.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. To bring back love into ourselves, into the situation, into them. I think another big piece in self-compassion is taking that learner's approach of we're learning. We're constantly learning. We're learning what worked right now, what didn't work right now, and that's part of life. That's part of just experiencing your day-to-day and figuring out what's working, what's not working, and how can we continue to practice and modify and learn from these moments.
Right, because we as parents, we're still learning too.
Yes.
And we sometimes I think our kids want to see us as being, since we are the authority figure, we're supposed to know how to do it all. And it's not that we don't know, but sometimes we have to relearn. So, and that's why we practice. And when things change in our lives.
Absolutely.
When things change, we have to relearn a skill sometimes, or re's not the right one there, but figure out again how to do something that maybe we just over time hadn't needed anymore.
There's a constant problem solving as a parent. And as a parent with a child with special needs, there's a constant problem solving of this moment may be different. This challenge may be different. And in general, for parenting, every age and stage is different. So you're constantly learning, and your child is different as they continue and they're growing.
Stages, multiple kids, all of that.
Yes, you're changing, they're changing, environment's changing.
Yes, all the
Daily
time.
is changing.
And especially if you travel with your kids, or if you take your kids to new experiences and new places, then
my goodness, yes.
There's no way sometimes to predict what they're going to do. Yeah. In fact, there's no way to predict what they're going to do at home either, right? So we feel like we're constantly responding and changing all the time. This flex, I love going back to that flexibility we talked about, right?
I think this is why flexibility and self-compassion, as you practice skills and strategies, but honestly, as we just live life, is so important to have as a foundation of, let me introduce these two components, just flexibility and self-compassion, as strategies in the day, as the day kind of happens, keeping both of those in mind.
Right.
With any, strategy or no strategy. If you're like, I don't know what skills to use today, all I know is let me go back to being kind to myself and being flexible with this next moment.
Yes, and that's one of the things Avance helps, is teach us how to make that a regular practice in our lives. And you said that your workouts are action-oriented. That's right. So you're teaching us how to play this out. What does that look like when it's action-oriented?
That's right. So one of the differences with our Circuit C2Y, it's Connect to Yourself, the program, is that as you go through the series, it's designed to be experiential, which is you are in practice as you go through each exercise. And so we absolutely prompt you to engage in the strategy to do the exercise while you're with us and to continue to learn from that moment of you in your exercise, knowing that if you came back a different day to do a circuit or a workout, that your experience will be different, because in that moment you have other things within you that you may notice. Your experience of a strategy may be a little different that day, maybe because you've already practiced them,
right,
or not. But you'll continue to notice the shift, and I think that's one of the main components for us, is that people continue to notice how they shift internally and how they shift every day, even if we practice nothing, and then especially when we do practice strategies, that we see that they actually work.
Yeah, and when you're putting them in play, then you go back and you take, whether you retake the same circuit again, or you take what would be the next circuit, you're building because you have a skill, and now you're going to build on that skill, et cetera. It's like basketball players. They make more shots outside of the game than they do in the game. Why? So that way when they're in the game, when they're in the stress, it's automatic and they're just doing it.
Beautiful. I loved that. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have to start to use that one. I'm going to have to start to use that one.
So we've talked about some different strategies. when we talk about systems of support a little bit, because we're trying to build a community, how can, Avance help them with that too, with that system of support?
Yeah. I like to think of us as a system of support. One of the things we do is offer discovery sessions. And if we're not necessarily the resource or tool for them at this time because of the design we have or what their needs are, we're always connecting people to other resources that may be available in the community or the larger networks that be. But
really great.
Aside from us or that, I would generally say that community and seeking your support system is probably necessary in so many different levels, whether it is networks and organizations and services that people offer, having a variety of different levels of support with friends, with family, with individuals that maybe are just more acquaintances. But the more that you have of variation or a variety of support levels, you can kind of tap in, and it kind of just keep going back to flexibility, but you can have more choices for where to go and who to talk to and match them to what the needs might be for you that month, that year.
Yeah. As your needs change.
As things change. Knowing, I think it just really goes back to figuring out what are my needs now and when do they change? Because when they change, I need to seek something different, not maybe use the same support group that might not actually be the most helpful for the current need.
That's a really key insight. I love that. When we start to see our needs change, it's important to also, in a sense, reevaluate our support systems and the fact that there's levels. You hit on two really good points there. Levels of support systems. Not everybody has to be the best friend.
Yes.
Not everybody needs to be available every time you need to call. There's different levels of support systems. And then as our needs change, as life evolves, we have to analyze for ourselves, okay, what is it that we really need right now? And is this support system going to gain in importance, stay the same, shrink? Do I need to incorporate or try to find a new support system? That's really important.
I think if we take an objective approach to it, it can help us. If we analyze it like this, an evaluation kind of mode of like, wait a minute, is this still helpful? Just the same way with the strategies, instead of where most of us will probably say, oh my gosh, it's me. I'm not doing something right here. But if we just take an objective approach, it's not oftentimes just us or us at all. It's just that the system of our life right then may have different needs.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And as our kids change, I remember there was a really good friend of mine from childhood that when my son was in the hospital, she visited me, and there was a night that, she just sat there and I curled up and cried, because just all the stress and everything. He was sleeping in the little hospital crib, and I was crying on the mommy couch with my girlfriend who was just holding me. But then I have another friend who's there for all the practical things. I call her and she'll listen to me, but then she'll also be like, all right, so now you're going to stop crying about it. And you need to tell me what we're going to do. So she's just a little bit, just a different friend. And sometimes you're right. I need the cry friend that's just going to pat me on the back and snuggle me. But I need the friend who's going to be like, all right, get over yourself. Put your big girl panties on. Let's go.
Let's move on. Let's get it together.
So it's so good to have people in different areas. And that's one of the points of getting a community in multiple communities. And some of them, you may never meet the people. They could be online communities. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely.
And I think people are nervous about that as long as you're not putting your personal info out there.
Right. And there's some that you can participate anonymously. And for example, that's us. You can participate anonymously, and you can join us. We have different options throughout the day, Monday through Friday. And so our program, for example, is a little bit more daily or supportive in that sense, even though it's not necessarily like a one-to-one sitting. And so, again, going back to what is out there, what does it look like? If it's a one-on-one sitting, what are the options for those? How frequent are those? maybe it's not the one-on-one option and you're thinking a workout or a check-in may be helpful just to practice some skills. And so all these different options that exist, even if we don't necessarily use them, but we know, just like the strategies, we just know that, oh yeah, that's there, so that when something is challenging, we can go to our list of options and look at some of them. And
our toolbox, in a sense.
And just go call on them.
Yes, our menu, our toolbox, whatever they want to call it. It is more comforting sometimes just to have that there, to know you have a list.
Absolutely.
Of that. So, and that does give hope. I mean, when we're frustrated and we're trying to find the joy of that special needs parenting that day, to be able to say, okay, I can go and I can do these things for myself. That's going to build hope for I'm going to handle it right. And then that's going to help me find the joy, because it's going to help me reset my emotions, get my thoughts in order, and help me line up all those kinds of things.
It gives just enough space maybe for that next moment, that next day. And, you know, once you get a little bit of space or a little bit of rest or a little bit of a break, we tend to feel a little better, like we can handle things again, like we can do this, we can get through this.
And that builds our strength, but it also then relates to our happiness.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I think is hard sometimes when, as a special needs parent, when I interact with the world and I see, even on social media, I'll see people, look at my kid doing this or look at my kid doing that. Yeah. And sometimes that can highlight what your child's not ever going to be able to do.
Right.
Physically, mentally, behaviorally, whatever it is, career-wise, those kinds of things. And that can hurt as a parent. And that really just hits home. It hits right in the heart. Yeah. And so to keep that happiness going, that's where those mental health exercises can help us too, is really the core of that.
Well, it shifts that focus. And it shifts those emotions that we're having in those when we're coming across that, right?
Yes.
And then going back to what we can do in our lives with our kids.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I remember my oldest son has autism. So my middle son's the one that with rare genetic syndrome called KBG. My oldest son has autism. And I remember one day I saw this piece of paper that was cut. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And as I was walking into my bathroom for something, I don't remember now. And as I'm walking in, I noticed something else that was thicker than a piece of paper was cut. And I was like, well, I kept on walking. And all of a sudden, there was a series of 5 items, and they were in a row of things that were cut. And they got increasingly thicker and more challenging to cut.
Wow.
What they were did not matter to him. It was the sensory feedback. And it took a lot of reframing my thoughts and my emotions, because it was my makeup bag. It was my husband's shoe. Sure. It was a couple other things.
Yeah.
And I almost was like, why would you destroy our stuff?
Right.
And then I had to stop myself and go, he didn't destroy our stuff.
Right.
He was very focused on that sensory feedback.
Yeah.
And my immediate reaction was, all the training that you have, if you'd asked anybody else, you should punish him and he'll never do it again. And it was like, that's not going to work, because that's not solving the problem of the sensory feedback. So it took that reframing my thoughts, swallowing my emotions in the moment to sit my son down and have a conversation with him a little bit. I laid all the items out. And he just was completely unaware of how that impacted us, first of all. There's the autism part, right?
I was just going to say how the two different realities coexist, right? Their intentions with what they're doing, which has no intention to what the outcome was, that for the parent especially, and usually is like, that damaged my stuff.
Yes.
But not ever really the kid's intention or thought process of like, oh, I'm damaging so-and-so's stuff.
Yep.
That those two are like almost two separate things. Kid does X activity for X reason, that's one.
Yep.
And then parent, has an experience with their stuff.
Right.
That it's almost as if they're two separate
situations. And they really are. And that's one of those moments where, I can toot my own horn.
Right.
I was able to keep my emotions in check and actually analyze it. But of course, there's many moments where I did not, and other things.
Right there takes so much practice and work.
Yeah.
So to be conscious in the moment,
Yeah.
and to bring that up and say, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
To slow ourselves down, to not react to them and what just happened, which is usually messy or damaging to something.
Right.
Right? Like, kudos, because it's energy, it's practice.
It's energy, yeah.
It is practice to do that.
And not that, everything's been great since then. I've definitely had my moments where I have not kept my cool. And I've been like,
All of us.
yeah, right? So keeping our mental health in check helps us have more cool moments than bear moments.
And even in the challenging moments, right? Just to even say like, oh, you know what? Putting this in perspective, taking a step back, that we can problem solve it instead of just reacting. Because at the end of the day, there's probably something that needs to be solved with whatever happened here. And our energy towards solving it is going to just be more productive and helpful.
Energy towards solving it, right? I love that. Yeah. When we can learn to really use that self-compassion and get in touch with our emotions, because emotions are energy. That's why they have to be let out.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times where that anger comes from. It's trying to let them out.
Absolutely.
And if we can learn a way to channel that energy into a solution rather than to create a bigger problem, we're going to help ourselves, help our kids, help everyone around us.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. You said that with Avance Hub, for us and anyone that's going to watch the podcast, that you had a special deal because you would like us to be able to reach out to you guys.
Absolutely.
So tell us how to get a hold of you.
Yes. Well, you can check out our website at avancehub.co.
And we will have that on our website too.
Great.
So it'll all be there.
Awesome. You can schedule a discovery session for free on there too and just get connected with us, see if it may be a good fit for what your needs are in the moment. And for your listeners here who reach out, if they would like to try out a workout for free, we are offering a trial period for a workout and also a discount of 25% off for the month. And what we do is we have a monthly fee and people are able to come as is convenient and accessible to them during the month.
That's nice to know, because then you don't have to think, I need to get on and I need help right now, but I don't have the extra $10. It's like, it's a flat monthly fee. And you can get on and you can use the services as needed. That brings a lot of comfort and stability probably to a lot of people. I know it does to me. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Our intention is to kind of just make it easier to join, and knowing that our aim is to give more value than what the cost is.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, we'll definitely have all of your information on our resources page on our website. And I'll make sure to send you links too, so you can send them out also for this podcast, so you can use that as a little bit for you too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Monica, so much for joining me. I really appreciate you being here today.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
This program is made possible by friends and partners of the Special Parent Podcast. For more information and to join our mailing list, visit specialparent.org.